More information about a mass restructuring at the United States Forest Service.
The agency is moving its headquarters out of the nation's capital and shutting down dozens of research centers, including 4 here in Michigan. News 10's Riley Connell joins us live from East Lansing with more.
Yeah, Anna, David, that's right. I'm right outside of the Natural Resources building here on Michigan State University's campus, where one of those research centers is located. Now, with these closures, it means that Michigan is completely wiped clean of its U.S. Forest Service research centers. And it appears that restructuring is already underway. When I tried to call the U.S. Forest Service media line in Washington, D.C. earlier today, the number was disconnected. However, I did receive this email statement from a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Agriculture saying the restructuring will occur in phases. They said employees will receive clear information about relocation timelines, available options, and resources to support their decision. The U.S. Forest Service, if you don't know, was built to protect the country's natural resources. Not only does it oversee the national parks, it responds to wildfires and other natural disasters. Kelly Thayer with the Michigan sector of the Environmental Law and Policy Center says moving forestry research out of Michigan and ultimately away from Michigan forests puts conservation efforts in the state at risk.
In Michigan, the forest products industry alone is worth more than $25 billion a year in economic output. And that industry rests upon science that protects us from emerging diseases, invasive species, and other threats from a changing, warming world.
The Michigan Department of Natural Resources is also responding tonight. In a statement, a spokesperson said it is unclear how the changes will affect the DNR, given that they were just announced, adding it's apparent the impact to individual programs is not yet clear. But the DNR did add this change means the Northern Institute for Applied Climate Science in Houghton will be moving over to Colorado. It is not clear yet if any of this restructuring or any of these changes will lead to job losses within the U.S. Forest Service. Live in East Lansing, Riley Connell, News 10.
Riley, thank you. Michigan is not the only state to lose out on Forest Service research. Illinois, Alabama, Connecticut, and Maryland are among the list of states now entirely without a research center. You can find more information on our website. A breezy and cold